Hi, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to week 5 of the course already. And this week we are focusing on the first prepared environment. And we talk about the prepared environment so often in Montessori, but all of us experienced a universal environment during the times that we were living within our mother. And today, in discussing that and focusing on that topic, I am so grateful to be able to be with someone who is dear to me and is going to share with us herself and a conversation together around that topic. So I have with me Jennifer Derugen, who is a certified professional midwife. And I would like to welcome you, and also if you just like to start and share a little bit about yourself.
Okay, well, thank you, Pam. And I'm so excited to be here and to be able to share a little bit about home births and my passion with that and midwifery. And I'm actually in my 40th year of attending home births. I can't actually believe I'm saying that, but I've been passionate about births all of this time. And my mission in doing this was to empower women through birth, actually to facilitate women's empowerment through birth. And that's what really, really attracted me to it. And so I started apprenticing in like 1980, and now I've been to over 1,000 births. Just a real blessing in my life to have witnessed all of this, and my focus is home births. I actually have 2 children. I had my son. I've looked for a midwife and wanted a home birth with him, but I couldn't find a midwife. So I ended up having him in the hospital. It was one of the first natural births, and I was rather empowered through that. But they took him away and put him under the lights and the warmer, and I knew then that birth should and could be an empowering experience, and that I would be more involved with that as time would go on. And sure enough, when he was about 4, I began to apprentice, and then I had a daughter, actually 8 years to the day when he was born, and my mentor midwife assisted me with that home birth, and I became my best advocate for home birth at that time. It was an incredible, empowering experience, and especially after the birth, just being at home in my own bed with my family, it was just awesome. And so I wanted to share those kind of experiences with others. So that's a little bit about me.
Thank you. And I have to say that you were the first midwife that I ever met many years ago.
Is that right?
Yeah. So that was a long time ago.
Yes.
And I would, you're talking about your passion for birth and your experience of home birth, and I had a home birth as well, and the what I experienced myself made me also want to. It was really like an awakening process, of there's something here. There's something here that is universal, and it is a way to serve, and it's a way to approach pregnancy and approach labor and birth and parenting in a unique way, a unique path. And in Montessori, the the understandings that Maria brought around birth and pregnancy as well is very much in recognition of the life of the unborn child. You know, that it's not that the baby is a living being, and that there's the full capacity during that time for the mother to be, and the co-parent, if there's a co-parent, to be in connection with their child, and that there's life happening then. And I just wondered if you had any thing you'd like to say around how parents can, with that in mind, and with that understanding that we don't wait until the baby is in our hands to be able to be with our baby, if there are ways that women can connect with their child while they're pregnant.
Yeah, I resonate with that. I think, well, just saying through my practice, I see the women in their homes prenatally. I like that because they are in their own element, and then they are comfortable, and instead of them coming to me in an office and just seeing me in that environment, I knock at their door and walk into their home and sit down, and if they have children, their children are there. They offer me tea or something, and then we just sit and spend a lot of time talking about their emotions and how they're feeling, and their diet and exercise and all of that. But I feel like having you know, knowing that they have like an hour to communicate and to talk, then that helps us get into that aspect of how how their baby is doing within, how are they connecting with their baby, what are they feeling, and then of course we listen to the baby's heartbeat and talk about that, and I also have full life-size pictures that seem to really bring it home for them when they see, like, this is the size of your baby right now, and and then here and here, I think this is where the butt is, and here's where the back is, and that I think that kind of helps make it more real.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, I kind of encourage that and open up for that.
So it's and it also, it's about relationship, because
Yes,
you're bringing yourself into a process of relationship with that woman and with that family. That
yes,
is that is also opening up a process of building trust.
exactly. And I feel like my practice is built upon honesty and transparency and trust.
Mhm.
And I think it's really important for families when they're having a baby to, that doesn't necessarily have to be a home birth, but a home birth environment, and then that kind of a intimate and sensitive maternity care helps us all trust each other, and you know, and we grow together towards that time when their baby is going to be born, and work on all of that.
Mhm. Because if you think of, I mean, nothing has changed in women as far as
Right.
birth goes. Nothing has changed. We're mammals, and the needs that we have as in pregnancy, the needs that we have in labor and in birth is the same as it's always been. And the way that I see such a blending between Montessori and birth for me is that the same sensitivities that are there in women and in the child are the baby child, and are there in the young child as well. And if there is an environment that's holding trust and holding trust in the process, and also the recognition that this isn't our process. This is the process of the mother and the baby, and this is the process of the child, and we are there to be almost witnesses and observers. That it makes it all already is creating this foundation of empowerment for a woman, is what I experienced anyway. That the possibility and knowing that there's someone who is fully skilled and experienced and knowledgeable present, but that it is not her process.
Exactly. I always tell people that I'm there to, well, first of all, I've seen the normal aspect of birth. I've seen when it steps outside of it, and my job is to help her bring it back into the normal. And so when all of that is happening, my presence and whoever is assisting, our presence is to enhance their confidence to birth their baby. And so when you have someone that can say, oh, everything's fine, or oh, this is stepping outside, it enhances the mother and the partner, and to continue on, and to have someone that's trusting that process and just monitoring. We do monitor to make sure that the baby's doing well and that mom's doing well, but it's not a continuous monitoring like you have. I mean, the mom has this freedom to be and to do as she chooses to facilitate birth, take positions that work for her, go in the shower if it works for her. All of these things are helping her trust her innate wisdom, which I feel before a woman has a baby, the innate wisdom, it's there, but it becomes more pronounced when she actually goes into labor, because then she's joining with all the women that have had babies or are now having babies. I mean, we do know how to birth. We do know how.
That we do, and it's but it can be so changed by the presence of who's there.
Yes, it can be. And so then there is a responsibility, if we're talking about home birth, there's a responsibility for the parents to stay low risk and in good health. I mean, we can advise on, nutrition and that sort of thing, but they have to do the work. And then for someone that doesn't fit that category, it's not that they can't have an empowering experience. You take what you're given for birth. We don't know what our journey is to birth until we get there, and it's a blend between the mom and the baby, and then primarily, but then it also relates to those that are around them and what their energy level is. So to prepare for this experience, you want to have people that aren't fearful of what you're doing. You want that support. I think that's just really, really important.
Mm-hmm. I think that's very key, and it's similar again to the, if in the classroom environment, for example, if there's a child that is concentrating and working, we would call it, and someone were to come and they're in such a sensitive period of the environment, like their hearing and their visual, it's very raw when they're a young child. It reminds me very much of women in labor that their eyes are closed, but they can hear, they can see, and they can hear. And the very young child is like that from birth to age 3 during the unconscious mind time. And so even with a look to a child, it can stop them. They could be going over to get something they've never done before, and it's a risk for them because for some reason it has maybe there's been certain dynamics or whatever, but they're going from their own initiative, from their own inner drive to do something. And a look is given, or an adult, someone says something, and that can stop them in their tracks and stops their process, and they walk away from it. And I find that too with birth, that if things are said during that really sensitive period that women are in, that things that can just stop because we don't feel safe, we don't feel that it's a good time, we don't feel that it's a good place. We feel the different hormones get released, and we can just stop things for ourselves.
Exactly, it is real similar. Yes, and that can happen. And sometimes when something like that happens, you just need to clear out the space or have mom do something different, like get in the shower. Sometimes I tell them, just get in the shower, just let that water wash down and just wash this away and start again. You're not really starting again, but you're, letting go of that sort of thing. And then a midwife at a home birth is one that helps to keep that environment positive. Like if there's too many people, maybe some of them need to go shopping and get some food or something. And yeah, there's the mother in labor. It is a really sensitive time. They're very acutely aware of what they need or they don't need, and they need to be free to be able to express that, or have an advocate that has seen them and understands what they need and help be an advocate for them. I think that's probably where your doulas in the hospital are very valuable, because they have built some sort of a relationship with them and can help them in that environment. But I am a home birth midwife. I had a home birth, and that's my thing. It's not for everyone, but it's can be a very empowering and incredible experience. I wanted to mention, when I was apprenticing, I apprenticed with a midwife that attended predominantly Amish. And the Amish they lead a simple lifestyle. They have an incredible trust in their faith, and they're planning on having babies, and they embrace pregnancy and birth. And I really learned through them to trust birth and to trust that process. It was an incredible way to begin with birth. I saw that first, and then if we have an issue or something is stepping outside of for home birth, because you've got to be low risk for home birth, and then we're glad for the hospital. But first and foremost, I learned witnessing birth as a normal and natural event, and in a healthy mother, usually it ends up being a healthy infant and a healthy birth. So that's kind of a blessing.
Yeah, it makes me think about the part of birth, the mystery of it, because there's the unknown that the woman enters into. Everybody that's present enters into that unknown, and it has a feeling to it. It has the same feeling to it that I feel when I'm in the classroom environment at Ananda sometimes. That feeling of just because there's freedom, and there's that freedom of expression and experimentation by the child, that I don't know what's going to happen next, but I can make room for that. and space for that.
Mhm.
And with the birth, it's the same way. We don't know
Yeah, and
what done.
you never know. Um,
Yeah.
and regardless of where you actually give birth, but the best that anyone can do is during the pregnancy is to take time, you know, lay down in a relaxed state, put your hands on your belly, feel your baby, you know, touch your baby, tune in with it. If you're having a stressful day, I think it's important to talk to the baby and say, this is about mom. This isn't about you. You
Mhm.
know, mom's having a stressful day. You're doing really great. You know, and I love you. And I mean, because it's really real. We just can't see the baby. You know, can't see through the skin, but it's there and you can feel it. And and then to trust in yourself and to listen to your intuition. And even with home births, I'll tell people if I'm there and we think everything's going fine, and something inside of you feels like, oh no, I'm not really comfortable, then let's go to the hospital. A mom will not deliver um, unless she's in a
Mhm.
space that she feels comfortable. And you know, so that happens occasionally too. And then if we go to the hospital and everything's fine, it's like you're right where you needed to be because you birthed, you know.
Mhm.
Um, so that's all really important.
And you're bringing your own discernment around your experience, but also your intuition
Hmm.
with what you're sensing and you're feeling, which is much, which is such a multi-textured way of being with birth compared to just looking at the diagnostic level of it, which
Exactly.
which is included with home birth,
Hmm.
absolutely. But if it comes from just from there, which would be the external, and then comes back, that's one way of experiencing a birth. If it comes from the intuitive and trusting part, then that's a whole other experience.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Hmm.
it's I you know unknown and amazing things can happen.
Yes, and it's the facing the unknown.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, I had that there's a quote that Maria Montessori taught often about doing this in the classroom, but there's a quote that is, I don't even know who said it, but that a skilled midwife knows how to sit on her hands.
Hmm.
And Maria Montessori talked a lot about the teacher and doing the same thing.
Yeah, and there's a time and a place for that, and I think that sometimes it's misinterpreted. Um, it's like for myself, I like to listen to the baby's heartbeat, verify the
Mhm.
baby's head down, check mom's blood pressure, tune in with her intuitively, and then you don't have to hover over the mom like when
Mhm.
in the hospital you have a fetal monitor on continuously. You don't necessarily need to have that if everything is fine. And then, like you say, sit on your hands. Go, I go in another room. Let the mom and the partner bond, and it's their process and the baby's process. And there's a time when information needs to be had, and then there's a time to just let the process unfold and let them find their way. I think that's really important.
Mhm. Yeah, it's because there's interruption,
Yes.
which is sometimes, I mean, I guess I think of it, the interruption that is purposeful, that is where there's guidance needed, where you can come and assist, but it's in a way where you're almost joining the woman in labor.
Hmm.
And then there's the kind of interruption that's very jarring. And it could be for the same thing.
And it's very what?
It could be very jarring,
Yes.
and it could be for the same thing. It could be for listening to the baby.
Hmm.
But the way it's done and the timing of it being done is the key thing.
Yes.
And
Yes.
those are huge differences.
Yes. And sometimes that kind of care is difficult to find.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, to be honest, it is. But so that's why when people are choosing their caregiver, they need to feel a resonance. I mean, with whoever they're having, and to honor, and someone that's going to honor your process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is.
Uh,
It's the work of I remember a quote by Michel Audin, the French obstetrician, and he says something about, the first work of enduring pregnancy is to find the place of birth and who you're going to have at your birth. Those are the first decisions, and then the real work begins.
yes. Yeah.
And that's the parents' work,
Hmm.
and finding the person that they resonate with, and that they feel the place that they feel is the safest for them, and they feel trust and all those things. But it's not, if we become too passive around birth, then to me it leads to certain things that are even happening in our country,
Yeah.
not in home birth but in hospital birth.
Hmm. And I sort of feel like birthing, and especially an empowered birth experience, leads to empowered parenting. So it all really does begin in the womb, and then all the way through, and the choices that you make when you become pregnant, you all of a sudden are faced with all of these decisions. And then I think the key thing really is to tune in within yourself, find your place of peace and calm and trust, and to work on that so that you can go through this process of birth, whatever you're given to do, and do it. Um, um, anyway, and then during the whole thing, I like to encourage a closeness between the partner and the mom, and so that they go through with that. And then I would like to, unless you have some other question, talk a little bit about
No, go ahead.
the actual birth,
Mm-hmm.
the optimal birth. And that is where the mom, the mom and the partner, they can catch their own baby if they want to. Of course, the midwife is there, and she can check for the cord and make sure all of that is right. But there's something really, really wonderful about them both just being involved with the birth, and then the baby is born, and I see so many babies, they're born, and in the first minute they give out that reassuring little cry and stuff, and if it was peaceful, they just seem to settle down and nestle into mom and just kind of hang out there. It's almost as if they're not born. They're just so peaceful and calm, and mom is just loving them and snipping their head. I'm not one to want to wash their hair, and just let that uh, there's a bonding that happens with all of that. And then also, you don't have to cut the cord right away. That's just really wonderful too, and let the baby stay attached. And just mom and dad, or the significant other, the partner, just falling in love with their baby. And at that point, the baby's kind of been checked out. the caregivers just kind of step back and let them have kind of an undisturbed hour of bonding. I think it's really, really important.
Mm-hmm. Well, those are Marie Montessori wrote, that's the most important time, that education begins at birth.
It begins with birth.
Education begins at birth. She taught a lot about prenatally, but that time is essential, and it is, it involves patience on the part of the attendant and of the
Yes,
midwife, that for you is just a natural thing. You wouldn't, unless it was called for, and enter in any way. But it's a timeless time, and it won't ever happen again.
exactly. It's that moment. And and my job is to facilitate the safe delivery, and then it's the family's birth, and it's that moment for me to step back and quietly observe, um, and let them bond and fall in love, because sometimes there's other children, and sometimes there's other children, and we don't want to interrupt, an extra person in the room, even though they know me well, but they don't need me at that moment. And so don't want to interrupt their process of falling in love or being distracted if they don't need to be. Um, and that can be done. You can stand back.
Mm-hmm. Well, it gives them the that falling in love, and all the baby is born, and then everything that the baby had inside, that were what we call reference points, or the ways that we knew our mother, through taste and through smell and through touch and through hearing and through all of our inner knowing. We can have those once we're born, if there's space provided for that.
Exactly.
And if it's not there, the baby, there's problems with babies adapting.
Mm-hmm.
There's problems with women moving into trust in
Mm-hmm.
their own capacity to be with their baby, and in the baby feeling that this is a safe place to be. So if they're skin to skin and they have all that time, then all those little, they're really cellular memories in the baby and in the mother, that just gets to be experienced, but it's on the outside now.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And that forms a whole life
Mm-hmm.
right there. So that, yeah.
And yeah, and that's what my 40 years with midwifery has been about, is being able to do that and to see that. And there's something real sweet about after birth is over and everybody's stable and they're all tucked into bed, and you get in your car and you drive home. And that's really awesome. But I also just want to add, because sometimes birth doesn't go the way planned. Sometimes the dreams and the desires that I have for the client and that they have for themselves, sometimes it doesn't go that way. Sometimes they do go to a hospital, and sometimes, they don't get that hour of bonding. And I don't want someone to feel bad about that. If that happens to you, then I feel like you just have to realize that is what happened. That was part of your journey. And then you just start from there and continue to do the bonding. Because if you hold within yourself a regret, or of the way everything went, then you're not able to as openly embrace your baby and provide that safe environment for the baby. I think we have to accept what happens, whether it's because it needed to happen, or if it was because you don't believe it needed to happen and that your caregivers were the wrong people, but you still pick up those pieces and bond with your baby. And then, of course, throughout your whole pregnancy, you can be doing all of these things that we talked about and bonding with your baby. And then birth is the unknown, and then you process whatever your birth was, and but then you still have that baby that needs its mother and needs to feel secure with its mother. And but like I say, I had a beautiful home birth, and that made me be my best advocate for home birth. I also had a hospital birth, and I knew I felt strong and empowered with that, but it wasn't handled the way I wanted. And but anyway, eventually, you know, they're both doing well. They're grown adults. So, but I did want to add that so that someone's not like, oh, my birth was a disaster. We just pick up the pieces wherever we are.
That's beautiful. And the thing that is a key part of it is if you're with a home birth midwife such as yourself and there was a different outcome, you're still a key, you're the consistent thread.
Yes.
You're the consistent thread because you're with them, and you become a model even for, let's say that something changed and it was different, and then some of those feelings did come up in the mother. You can be modeling and supporting and guiding and reminding, we start from here.
Exactly.
And your presence can be the biggest difference of just showing this is where we are. And if there's not that consistent person, then I can only imagine what that could be.
Yeah, how lost they can feel.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Because yes, if I follow them all the way through. If we go to the hospital, and then follow up at home. And it is important. I feel like there's a lack of postpartum follow-up in our country too for women after they've had babies, and I think that's important too, to continue that process.
It is for many months, and to have groups, new mom groups during that time, that is to be cared for and to be with other women and to be just not in isolation, which becomes so common here in this country. I don't know, just for myself, I didn't receive anything compared from the hospital compared to what I did from my home birth midwife for the longest time afterward, up to the 6 weeks. There were so many visits, but also just a connection where I knew that she knew me well enough that if there was something that she needed to come more, then she would come more. And that I also had the knowing in myself, because of the relationship, that I could ask for that.
Yes, yes.
And that's the part that is, there's so much depth to it, that relationship. Because that might be the only person, even our partners, we might not say that to. How much we're struggling, but we can with this other woman.
Yeah, and that all comes from the foundation of all the prenatal care and getting to know each other. It's really, really important. That a lot of women don't get, in the standard care that's out there. It's a very short visit. I mean, our visits are like an hour anyway, and it's not rushed. There's time to talk, and hit on all the emotions and everything, besides the vital checks and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah. And it's the level of all the levels of sensing and feeling that
mm-hmm,
are
mm-hmm,
just that they're so important because things can get missed. Little windows of opportunity can get missed that can be seen when we're able to have that willingness to look and to observe. And that's really essential because those are the times that you can come in and there might be that little doubt or worry in a woman that just needs to be voiced. And then if someone knows them well enough to even ask the question, then that can come forth.
yeah, that can bring forth a huge change, a huge um, transition.
Mm-hmm.
Mm, yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Wow, this was very great to talk with you. My gosh, I could talk and talk. Was there anything else that you can think of that you wanted to touch on with
I I think we I think we talked. Um, yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Um,
okay.
but if you're, if we're touching on home birth, is the
Mhm.
main thing I think in my practice is to have a relationship of honesty and trust and transparency between the birthing family and their caregivers, and that we are on the same team. And that might be a little bit of what is the difference between someone seeing someone um, that's in a short little office visit where they don't feel like they can talk a whole lot about things. And
Mhm.
we build upon that so that when the time for birth comes, it's it's a trusting experience, a joyous experience, and everyone is looking forward to it. And if that's not the case, then you may not have the right caregiver.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, because it what it does is it creates this bridge between the even if you're seeing your midwife, and you have that time and then that person leaves, there's still that feeling. It's like a bridge between that person and the home, and you
mhm,
almost become a part of the family.
yes, yes,
It's a
exactly.
level that is much deeper,
Hmm.
and then that's like I almost think of it as a hammock, almost a support that
Hmm.
is there all the time.
Hmm.
And a woman can just enter back into that very easily because if the caregiver is stable and present and willing to meet even herself in that way, and then there's that it can change, as you said, it can change their whole family.
Yes, and that just made me think of something is that, and as a caregiver, by knowing your clients that you're going to
Mhm.
go through birth with, um, part of my confidence and to continue on is getting it from the parents that are now trusting in their process. And then they're trusting in their process because they feel a level of confidence from me. We interrelate together.
Mhm.
If I'm attending someone and I feel everything is fine and they're not comfortable, then I'm not really very comfortable anymore either, because um, um, there has to be this comfort zone for birth. And so it's really an integral process. It's very sensitive. It's very intimate. Um, and so anyway, um,
Mhm.
somehow it's 40 years, and I feel really blessed and grateful for all these people that shared this experience with me. It's been wonderful, and I thank you for having me here and let me. I could talk on and on. I have more stuff I could say.
Well, we may have to do this again, my friend. There's always more, and
Yes.
you are a wise, experienced being and midwives, and there are many people that could be supported by you.
Well, thank you, and you too, my friend. Thank you for
Yes.
having me.
Well, you're welcome. So I'm going to end our meeting, and then I think I'll see you again
Yes.
sometime
All right.
soon.
Sounds
Okay,
good.
thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.